to show you how to make pasta carbonara the way that it's made in Italy. It's only got a handful of ingredients and is more about technique than anything else. But don't worry, my recipe is absolutely foolproof and I'm going to show you how it's made. Right, so I'm going to start with boiling pasta water, and this is 20 grams of salt that I'm adding to the boiling water. Hear that sizzle? So the right proportions are a liter of water for every 100 grams of pasta. I've got 200 grams of fettuccine here. You can use spaghetti as well, but I really like fettuccine when I'm making carbonara. So this is 200 grams of fettuccine, 2 liters of water and 20 grams of salt. And let that just boil away till it's cooked al dente. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of olive oil to the pan. Not too much because bacon has plenty of fat of its own. Little cut up pieces of bacon. You hear that sizzle? So the bacon also has its own natural saltiness, which will really add to the pasta. We're cooking with all natural flavors here. I'm going to let these bacon bits cook till they're slightly browned. And that's going to take a little bit of time. Right, so while the pasta and the bacon are cooking, I'm going to get the sauce together. I'm just going to crack open the first egg. And then another one. And now I need an egg yolk only. Getting good quality eggs from a known vendor is really important for this recipe because the egg doesn't get cooked completely like it would in an omelette. So just make sure you get good quality eggs. I'm just going to whisk up the eggs. I don't want to over whisk this. So while it's almost all whisked up, I'm going to add some really nice good quality Parmesan. This is going to be the other source of saltiness in this pasta. Gentle mixing now. This is all protein here, so you don't want to over mix things and just lose all the wonderfulness of all these ingredients. A little grind of some pepper, not too much because I'm going to add some more once the pasta is done. Now this is my only little deviation from the way that it might be made in Italy, is that I'm going to add the tiniest pinch of chili flakes, because I'm an Indian and I can't do without my mirchi. That's it. If you don't add the chili flakes, this is as authentic as it gets. This is the sauce. It's ready, and now I'm going to go back and check on the pasta and the bacon. That's it. The bacon is done. I'm going to take it off the heat. The pasta is cooked through. And now it's time to put pasta carbonara together. Now this is important and this is where technique really counts. Just pull out the pasta. Just strain it. I'm just trying to get all of that pasta into the strainer and getting the hot pasta water out. All the pasta is out, and I'm going to quickly turn it into this sauce that I've made. And this is where technique really counts, otherwise you're going to get scrambled eggs. And by not adding any of the pasta water right now, what I've done is that I've tempered the eggs so that they coat the pasta, and the pasta is still hot enough so it's absorbing the liquid. Now it's time to quickly add the bacon in batches, just so that it gets evenly distributed in the pasta. There it's absorbed all of the sauce, and I'm ready to plate it now. I'm just going to put some of that in a plate, a little bit of pepper. And of course, we can never have too much Parmesan. There it is, the perfect pasta carbonara. If you like this recipe, hit the like button, leave us a comment when you try the recipe, and subscribe to our channel for more such recipes. See ya!
Hello my lords, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Nick Saraf's Food Log. Today we're going to make an Italian delicacy. We're going to make the lasagna. So we're going to be making two sauces to go with the lasagna. The first sauce we're making is a Mornay sauce. A Mornay sauce is nothing but a bechamel sauce enriched with egg yolks and some grated Gruyere cheese. So let's start with first heating up some butter and flour in a saucepan to make a roux. Now we've heated up about 150 grams of butter with 150 grams of flour. Let it melt and come together. When there's a light boil, I pour in a liter of cold milk. And now I whisk this till it thickens. Make sure you keep whisking. Once it comes to a boil and it has thickened, bring the stove down to a low flame. Otherwise, milk everywhere. Not pretty. Now, if I was making bechamel sauce, or white sauce as some people like to call it for some reason, I would be done now. I would add salt, pepper, and a little bit of nutmeg, and be done. But to make a bechamel sauce or Mornay sauce, I'm going to add in it 2 whisked egg yolks. Make sure you immediately give them a good whisk, otherwise scrambled eggs in bechamel sauce. Not pretty again. Once the egg yolk is whisked in, we add grated Gruyere cheese, as much as you wish. 200 grams seems like a good amount though, for a liter of milk. Now we whisk it in, and we add some salt and crushed black pepper. You can alternatively add white pepper. Now that the sauce is done, let's keep it aside and start with the next one. Now let us make the marinara sauce. For this I'm going to put a pan on a medium to high flame and add in a good amount of olive oil. When the oil is heated up, add in a good amount of garlic, how much ever you wish. Cook the garlic in the oil, but make sure you don't color the garlic. Now we add in some chopped dry red chili and a few leaves of basil. Now before the garlic gets colored in the oil, we add in some tomato puree. When the sauce comes to a boil, you can add some more crushed red chili if you wish. If you, like me, love your spice. And a teaspoon of sweet paprika powder. Give it a good mix. Now we add some dry oregano. Give it a mix. Salt and crushed black pepper. Give it a mix. Finally, we add more basil and just a touch of some water. And now we let this boil for a minute or two. So the marinara sauce is done. I can take it off the flame and keep it aside. But since I want to make chicken lasagna, to the boiling marinara sauce, I will add some minced chicken. Cook it in the sauce itself. Now that the chicken is cooked, let's take it off the flame and keep it aside till we need to use it again. So now it's time for us to prepare the sheets of pasta for the lasagna. For this, I have boiled a good amount of water and I have salted the water. To this, I'm going to add a little bit of oil so that when we take the pasta out of the water, it doesn't stick and it's lubricated slightly by the oil. So let the water boil When the waters come to a boil, we add in a sheet of lasagna at a time. Give the pasta a light stir so that it doesn't stick to each other. And let it cook for about 2 to 3 minutes in boiling water. Now, since lasagna is cooked twice, one more time in the oven after this, we're going to cook our pasta al dente. So after 2-3 minutes, when it has softened but not turned completely opaque and soft, we take it out of the water and keep it on a plate. Now that the pasta is done cooking, let's immerse these sheets of lasagna in some cold water to stop the cooking completely, but make sure we drain the water completely before using it. Now let us start with the assembly for the lasagna. For this we need a glass or ceramic casserole dish. I'm going to butter this dish now. Spread just a touch of the Mornay sauce on the base. Now we put in the sheets of the lasagna. Make the first layer of some Mornay sauce. Sprinkle some grated mozzarella cheese. And now we put in the second layer of the lasagna sheets. Put in a layer of the chicken and marinara sauce. Sprinkle some mozzarella cheese. And now put in the next layer of the pasta. And repeat till you reach the top. When you reach the last layer, sprinkle some mozzarella cheese on top, a touch of white sauce, sprinkle on some breadcrumbs. This will give it a nice crispy texture on top. Now we sprinkle on some more mozzarella cheese. And now we take this bellissimo piece of lasagna into the oven and bake it for 30 minutes at 190 degrees. And now we let this cool for about 10 minutes before we cut a piece. So there you have it, a pride of Italy, the bellissimo lasagna. Bon appétit! Hello my lords, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Nick Saraf's Food Log. Today we're doing a world favorite, a food that's eaten in nearly every country, and it has its own variations depending on which country it's made in. Today we're going to make it a pizza. Now I'm going to be making a stuffed cheese pizza today. So for making the pizza base, we have 500 grams of flour. I'm going to be adding 8 to 9 grams of salt to it. Now let's make a well in the center and add about 40 to 45 milliliters of olive oil and 445 milliliters of water. Now let's bring this together to form a paste. Once it is nice and pasty, we add in about 18 to 20 grams of instant yeast and continue mixing till it forms a firm dough ball. Firm but supple. When the dough comes together, dust the surface and knead the dough for another 10 minutes. the dough has become soft, smooth and supple, and it doesn't stick to our hands anymore, it's done. So we keep it in a clean bowl, wrap that up with some plastic, and we keep this aside for half an hour for it to rise. So now that we have half an hour for the dough to rise, let's make the marinara sauce that will go on top of the pizza. And for this, we need a saucepan on medium to high heat. I'm going to pour in a good quantity of olive oil. Let the oil heat up. We add a whole chopped onion and we cook it till it's translucent. Once the onion is cooked, I will add in minced garlic. Now you can add any amount of garlic you want. Now we add a few leaves of basil to the mixture and cook it for just a few seconds. And now we add a can of pureed tomatoes. Now this is about 4 tomatoes and its juice. The tomatoes are skinned and whole. We just cook them on their own like that. And when the sizzling comes down, we take a masher and mash them in. When it is appropriately mashed, add in salt, crushed black pepper, and dry powdered oregano. Give it a mix. Since I love spice, I put in a little bit of cayenne pepper with the oregano. Now put in just a touch of water and let it come to a gradual boil. When it comes to a boil, add in a few more leaves of basil. There we go. And let it continue boiling for 1 minute. And the sauce is done. Now that our dough has doubled in size and it looks beautiful, let's take it out of the bowl, keep it to the side, and split it in half. And let's cover it with a dry cloth. Let's take this piece of dough and pull it slightly to make a circular shape. Lightly brush the surface with some flour and some on the top of the dough. And let's roll it out. Now I'm going to be using a specialty cooking pizza base for making this pizza. We will brush this with some oil, any oil. Make sure you brush it properly, and this is well oiled. Stretch my base over this. Give it a good roll inside. Trim off the excess. And make sure you pull it towards the edges and make a nice thin crust. So when you make an ordinary pizza, you will be putting the sauce on top, whatever topping you wish, cheese, and in the oven it goes. But since we're making a stuffed crust pizza, I will be making another circle and putting it on top of this. But before I do that, I have to fill this up with our marinara sauce. And a mixture of cheddar and mozzarella cheese. And now I shall add some cheddar cheese and some grated mozzarella. Make sure it doesn't go over the edges. We start to work with the second piece of dough that we had reserved under a cloth. Same process, lightly dust the surface, lightly dust the top of the dough, pull it, make it circular, and roll. Now that we're done with this, we get the already done base and put it on top. Trim off the excess. Pinch the base to seal the filling inside. Once this is done, we add the sauce on top of it. Be generous with the sauce. Now, since this pizza is going to be at 200 degrees in the oven for about 20 to 25 minutes, I'm not going to add the cheese on top right now. Otherwise, the cheese will surely burn. So, let's just put it as it is for 20 to 25 minutes at 200 degrees in the oven. This pizza is about 3/4 done, and now we'll top it off with a mixture of cheddar and mozzarella. And now back to the oven this goes for 10 more minutes. And our pizza pie is done. Now we leave it aside to cool for about 10 minutes. So let's cut into this beauty now. So there you have it, a double stuffed cheese pizza. Bon appetit! Hello my lord, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a Saraf foodalog. Now that we're back in mainland Europe, guess where we've come back to? We're back in Italia. Now Italy is famous for its pastas and its pizzas, but not really for its breakfast. In fact, the Italians are known to have just 1 cup of coffee and move on with the rest of their day. Sometimes they have a piece of croissant just to wash the coffee down. But there is one Italian preparation that goes very well with coffee, and many other things for that matter, and that is the traditional Italian biscotti. Now this recipe dates back to about 2,000 years ago, or even more. Since it's such an old recipe and I clearly don't know much about it, I've enlisted the help of my great aunt Agatha from the heavens. So let's call her. Aunt Agatha? Aunt Agatha, are you there?
Yoo-hoo, here I am. You know my hearing's not what it used to be, my dear. So what is it that we're going to be making today?
Italian biscotti.
Don't you take that tone with me, young man.
Sorry.
The traditional Italian biscotti is only flavoured with almonds and nothing else. There are 4 main ingredients in a biscotti: almonds, sugar, eggs, and flour. And of course, over thousands of years, we have tweaked it a little bit. So, the first thing you do is break open 2 eggs and whisk in 2/3 of a cup of sugar. My dear boy, please do pay attention.
I'm sorry. What was that again?
Break open 2 eggs and whisk in 2/3 of a cup of sugar. And keep whisking until the mixture thickens such that when you slowly raise the beaters, the batter should look like little ribbons. There you go. That would make an excellent trimming for my bonnet.
Seriously? Eggs?
Now you've beaten the almond extract. So some people have asked me if they can use vanilla extract instead of almond. To them I say no. That would destroy the biscotti completely.
Please forgive Aunt Agatha. She does have a tendency to exaggerate. Actually, I don't see any problem. Vanilla tastes just as good as almond does.
Well, I never. Really then?
Aunt Agatha, can we move on, please?
Oh, all right. In a separate bowl, you sieve in 1 3/4 of a cup of flour. And add to it a teaspoon of baking powder and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Add this to the egg batter and mix well until combined. There you go, that's good enough then. Now fold in a cup of blanched chopped almonds. Are those almonds toasted?
Of course they're toasted. I toasted them beforehand until they were golden brown.
Now that's like a good boy. Now roll the dough into a log. What is that you're using?
It's a silicone mat. It's really good actually. Nothing ever sticks to it.
Oh, you kids and your modern day gizmos. So the log must be around 30 centimetres or 12 inches long and 9 centimetres or 3.5 inches wide.
Well, actually, you can shape the biscotti however you want. It's your biscotti. Pick a shape that makes you happy.
But then don't call it a biscotti. Anyway, preheat an oven to 180 degrees. Now leave it in the oven for 25 minutes or until the log is firm. So now that we have time, listen to this. The origin of the biscotti dates back to the Roman army when they needed to carry treats with them while travelling, a long time before preservatives.
So is that why the biscotti doesn't have any oil, butter, or any other fats or dairy?
Oh yes, and the eggs are a recent addition too.
How recent?
Maybe 1,500 years ago?
That's recent.
Your oven seems to be done. Now let the log cool. Then we must cut it and bake it again.
Bake twice?
Of course, my dear. Biscotti comes from the Latin word biscottis, which means twice cooked or baked.
But why do we bake it twice?
So that it's very dry and can be stored for a long period of time. So now that your log must have cooled down, cut it into long strips. Arrange these strips back on your oven tray. Now back in the oven they go at 160 degrees for 10 more minutes. Now flip the biscuit over and bake it for 10 more minutes or until it's completely dry. Now that your biscotti is done, you can enjoy it with a cup of coffee or tea, as we're used to.
You said that right. Thank you very much, Aunt Agatha. And
Buon appetito!
it wasn't me. Hello my lords, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Nick Saraf's Food Log. Today we're doing an Italian favorite, that is spaghetti with meatballs in marinara sauce. Let's start with making some Italian meatballs. So we have with us about 500 grams of chicken mince, to which I'm going to add oregano, parsley, about a tablespoon of sweet paprika powder, grated Parmesan cheese, salt, and crushed black pepper. Mix it all together. Add 2 whisked eggs. Mix it all up. And finally, about 200 grams of breadcrumbs. Mix it all up. And now I'm going to oil my hands so that the meat doesn't stick to it. take about a tablespoon of chicken mince and roll it to form a meatball. Now that we're done making these, let's fry them up. Let's get the pan up on medium to high heat and heat up about 1/4 to 1/2 inch of oil. When the oil is heated up, we carefully lower in meatballs one at a time. Cook well on all sides to golden brown. And when they're done, we take them off on some absorbent paper. So I have with me some marinara sauce. It's exactly the same sauce that I made in the lasagna episode. Check the description below for the link. To this, I'm going to be adding the meatballs. Here we go. And mix it all together. And then heat it together. And the meatball marinara sauce is ready. So let's cook the spaghetti. In a pot I have kept some water which has been salted and oil has been added to it. Now when this water boils, we will add the spaghetti without breaking it in half. Now that the spaghetti is done, we take it off the heat, refresh it in some cold water after draining the water in a decanter, and rub in just a bit of oil so that it doesn't stick together. And now let's get it together on a plate. Top it up with some grated Parmesan cheese. So there you have it, spaghetti with a meatball marinara sauce. Bon appétit!